So, another episode of the Hype Show. I am Big J All Day, aka the Mighty Big J, and this is episode 3 of the Hype Show. Welcome in. Appreciate you joining me. Please do me a huge favor and like, comment, and subscribe on this video. Definitely helps the channel out. Appreciate anyone joining me at this current time here. It is September 14th, 2023. We're going to be talking about a mix of stuff here. Of course, the last 2 episodes have been mostly football oriented, so this one's going to be a lot less football. Well, a good amount of football, but we're going to talk about some major stuff going on as far as the NBA instituting some rules regarding teams resting players. We're going to give you an update on what's going on in Major League Baseball, division leaders, wild card contenders. We're also going to talk a little bit about the statistical leaders in certain categories. And to end the show, we're going to talk about the upcoming college football matchup here this weekend between Colorado State traveling to Boulder to visit the number 18 Colorado Buffs. That's 10 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. That'll be this Saturday, September 16th. That's going to be a great game. Definitely looking forward to that. And we definitely got some stuff that's happened just prior to the broadcast that we definitely have to talk about here, and we'll definitely touch on that here. The first thing we are going to talk about tonight, the Thursday night football matchup that'll be happening at 8:15 p.m. Eastern this evening. That is the Minnesota Vikings traveling to visit the Philadelphia Eagles. An NFC matchup here between 2 teams here that are going to be looking to get themselves in the right direction. I know Philadelphia won their game, but they definitely looked very rusty. Minnesota, they lost at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a very surprising result. So they're definitely looking to bounce back from that home loss here. Looking at these teams here, Justin Jefferson, again, I touched on this in the previous episode when going through the results here. He had 9 catches for 150 yards, but he didn't find the end zone. Now, I understand that, again, the Philadelphia Eagles did beat the New England Patriots, but there were points in the game where Philadelphia, they kind of let up on the gas a little bit. Now, there's a couple things that may have contributed to that, obviously. Now, I did touch on the defense having some holes in it, but there's going to be some things here I discuss here in a few minutes that have contributed to that. Now, again, here, New England did lose to the Eagles, but there were things that they exploited about the Philadelphia Eagles that other teams can touch on here. Some quick statistics here. Kirk Cousins, he was 33 of 44 for 344 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he had a QBR of 55. Jalen Hurts was 22 of 33, 170 yards, 1 touchdown, 36.4 QBR in the win. Now, looking at the injury report here for each team, this is definitely what contributed a lot in large part to what New England was able to do as far as keeping the game close against Philadelphia. Eagles linebacker Nakobe Dean, this is his second year out of the University of Georgia. He was placed on injured reserve yesterday, and he will miss multiple weeks, is what they're saying. The injury is not considered season-ending, and it will not require surgery. But when you're placed on IR, it's a minimum of 4 games, so he will miss at least the next 4 weeks of the Eagles' schedule. He was a large part of that defense last year as a rookie, so that's definitely going to hurt them quite a bit. The minimum games that he is going to miss is this game tonight here against the Minnesota Vikings. Then in 11 days here, they'll be at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's 7:15 Eastern. He'll miss the game against the Washington Commanders, not Redskins, Commanders, October 10th. That's 1 p.m. Eastern. And then they'll be at the Los Angeles Rams October 8th, 4:05 Eastern. So he'll miss a minimum of 4 games with this injury. And based on the severity of what they're saying here, that could be longer. That's that 4-week period. It's just a minimum based on the league requirements for injured reserve. They're also going to be down Kenneth Gainwell, the running back, and they're also going to be down their safety Blankenship here. They're both out with rib injuries here. They're both out for tonight's game. Also, quarterback Bradbury, he's also ruled out for the game as well with a concussion. He's in the concussion protocol, so he could miss more than tonight. But at the very minimum, he'll be out tonight. He's not on injured reserve or anything. But when you're in the concussion protocol, they observe you very carefully because concussions are a huge deal. So obvious reasons he's going to be out and possibly one more game. We'll just have to see what his status is for that game against Tampa Bay next week. Also listed as questionable for tonight's game is defensive tackle Fletcher Cox. He's dealing with a back issue, so he's not going to be suiting up for. He's possibly going to be out for tonight, but we'll just have to see as the game gets a little bit closer. Again, that game is 8:15 Eastern, so a little less, about 90 minutes or so. That game will be happening here. Looking at the Minnesota Vikings here, center Garrett Bradbury, he's been ruled out for the game with a back issue for the Minnesota Vikings. Linebacker Marcus Davenport and offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw are both dealing with ankle ailments, and they've both been listed as questionable for tonight's game here. That's the injury report for each team here. Everybody else looks to be good to go as far as each team. Again, this is football. There's going to be ailments that pop in every week for each team because of the nature of the game. So, but the one thing that the Philadelphia Eagles didn't really have as much of as a problem with last year was the injuries. This is definitely a huge deal when you're missing this many people on defense. When your linebacker and safety aspect of your team is that soft in the middle, quarterbacks can find a way to pick that apart. And that's going to probably be the issue for this team here. I genuinely think that Minnesota, they're going to have a good time in the middle of the field. They'll be able to target that. Kirk Cousins is a smart enough quarterback to be able to exploit weaknesses in the defense. We'll definitely have to see. When you have an attack that has all-pro wide receiver Justin Jefferson and all-pro tight end TJ Hawkinson in it, that's definitely going to make life miserable for the defense as a whole anyway. But when you're missing this many players, that definitely is going to make it worse. Something else to note here for the Philadelphia Eagles, with Kenneth Gainwell out, this is going to give more carries to DeAndre Swift. He's basically the de facto starter running back for this team. And also, running backs Boston Scott and Rashad Penny, who were healthy scratches for week 1 at New England this past Sunday, they're going to get some playing time as well here. I'm pretty sure Coach Nick Sirianni, he's looking to do a 3-man rotation with running the football because with Gainwell out right off the bat, you're going to need as much help as you can running that football. Also, looking at this game here, Eagles tight end Dallas Goedert, he was held without a catch week 1 against the New England Patriots. He was only targeted one time, and he's definitely looking to bounce back from that. When I think about that, that's kind of rough. He's definitely one of their top targets on this team. I know you have AJ Brown, I know you have Devontae Smith, but there's going to be certain instances where you're going to throw it to him in the short just to kind of keep the defenses honest as well, and also in running situations as well. I look for him to have a better game. Obviously, you can't do any better than no catches, obviously. So I definitely look to for him to have a better game and have more of an impact on the field tonight here. As far as who I'm picking, Minnesota at Philadelphia. Again, things happen week to week as far as injury. Every team has somebody dealing with something. That's professional football for you. Um, as far as the matchup here tonight, as far as who I'm taking, to be honest with you here, I still think the Philadelphia Eagles can win this game close. Because looking at week 1, again, Kirk Cousins, he had a 75% completion percentage while completing 33 of 44. But they didn't get the win. He only had the 2 touchdowns here. They didn't get the win over Tampa because Tampa made the right plays at the right time. Baker Mayfield, he made the right plays, especially to Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin got them that last first down that they needed to seal the game. And so, in all honesty, Kirk Cousins may put up great statistics, but it may not directly lead to a win because also looking at that game statistically, they didn't have a good running game from Alexander Madison. He didn't have any reception aspect either as far as the offense. So, in my opinion, they definitely need more from their running game, and they need Kirk Cousins to get it to Justin Jefferson in the end zone. Again, Justin Jefferson had 9 catches, 150 yards, but he did not see the end zone. That's a huge deal. His points in the end zone really matter. His rookie season in 2021, he definitely made that happen, but in 2022, he only had 6 touchdowns. So for me, in order for Minnesota to get the win here tonight, they really need that offense to click on all cylinders, and they need at least 100. They need close to 100 yards from their running game, even if it isn't just strictly from Madison. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to win this game by a touchdown. And after summing all that up here, I'm still going to take Philadelphia to win this football game by a touchdown. The Minnesota Vikings, they have some beasts on the defensive side of the ball, but I just do not know if that'll be the difference for this game because of what's happening here with both teams as a whole. I'm going to take the Philadelphia Eagles to win this football game by a touchdown, by one touchdown. That's what I'm going to do here. Switching gears, we are now going to talk about the Aaron Rodgers injury here. He had some posts put on Instagram here earlier in the day, or actually yesterday on Wednesday. He posted some things on Instagram. And the Jets quarterback, he's determined to get back, and he says he's not done by any means. Rodgers posted a couple of quotes here on his Instagram, and he posted the following here quote, I am completely heartbroken and moving through all of the emotions, but deeply touched and humbled by the support and the love. Please keep me in your thoughts and prayers as I begin the healing process today. He posted something a little bit after that that stated, the night is darkest before the dawn, and I shall rise yet again. Unquote. Is what Aaron Rodgers, he posted the two different posts yesterday on his Instagram. And as I stated when I first heard this injury about this, obviously I stated the obvious that this was very unfortunate for Aaron Rodgers and obviously unfortunate for the organization, the fan base, the whole nine. But I also stated that I honestly thought that Aaron Rodgers wouldn't want to go out like that, that he would want to come back and come back as strong as possible. I love the sentiment of that. I'm not an expert by any means as far as medical things, but tearing your Achilles tendon, I would never want to do that. I've never experienced anything like that. The injuries that I've had in my life, as far as any kind of sports or anything, have all been breaks of bones. That's not obviously not fun either, but I've heard from a lot of medical experts that when you break a bone, you can always count on a bone to heal correctly most of the time. But when it comes to tearing tendons and ligaments and things of that nature, it heals differently as far as like tearing muscles and things of that nature. That's one thing I constantly hear as far as the healing of the body when it comes to anything with fractures, tears, breaks, anything of that nature. So I genuinely hope that he can come back strong. He was obviously an elite quarterback for a long time here. Prior to this previous season, he was back seasons. So it's obviously that when he's engaged and when he's there, he can be the man, period. And this was including with Devontae Adams going to the Los Angeles Raiders. I'm sorry, the Las Vegas Raiders. This included that as well. He was still able to find the right guys. With Rodgers being out for the rest of the season, again, the Jets still plan to move forward with their quarterback Zach Wilson as their starter, with Matt Boyle backing him up as their quarterback here for the foreseeable future. Again, they stated they're not going to add anybody up from the free agent pool. They're not going to trade for anybody, anything of that nature. Um, I heard rumors and rumination that they wanted to talk to Tom Brady. That's just not no. That's just not going to work because one thing I forgot to point out regarding the Jets on offense when Rodgers was out there, all four of the snaps that he was on, he was pressured by someone from the defensive side of the ball, the Buffalo Bills. That means his protection just was not there. And this was something that the Jets touched on quite a bit in their training camp. If you watched Hard Knocks at all, if you watched any interviews on television, they talked about this quite a bit about not being sure about their offensive line. Dwayne Brown, the left tackle for this team, is 38 years old. He's 38 years old here, and he was drafted in the first round of the 2008 draft, number 26, by the Houston Texans. He's been with the Seahawks. He's been with a few different teams, and he just doesn't have the same movement. He's a big guy, 6'4", 329 pounds. But at 38 years old here, you're just not blocking the same and blocking with the frequency and velocity that you need to be, especially when the guys on the other side of the ball are probably in their 20s and may not have the health issues that you may have had, and they're coming at the quarterback like that because 4 dropbacks, 4 pressures, that's a huge deal. Aaron Rodgers, at some point, even if he didn't have this Achilles injury, something I hate to say this, something could have happened down the road possibly because if you're not blocking for your quarterback, I don't care if you have Michael Vick back there, something is going to go awry. You need to have that solid protection. So I genuinely hope that they can keep Zach Wilson protected and keep him upright. Um, that's a huge deal, especially with them playing against the Cowboys on Sunday. That's a huge deal. They're going to rush you. Micah Parsons, he comes at you relentlessly, and they're at home. It's going to be loud, very loud in that dome in Dallas, especially coming off that 40-0 whooping they gave the Giants. I don't know. I genuinely hope that the Jets have great fortune going forward here, but looking at their schedule, again, they're at Dallas September 17th, 4:25 Eastern on the CBS. That's their week 2 matchup. I'm at home week from Eastern. They'll be playing the New England Patriots. They're also home October 1st. That's a Sunday night football game, 8:20 Eastern against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then they're at the Denver Broncos October 8th, 4:25 p.m. Eastern. Of those the next 5 teams, let's include the Philadelphia Eagles. They're week 6 at home against the Philadelphia Eagles, 4:25 Eastern, October 15th. So of those 5 teams that I mentioned, there's a pass rush presence on all of those teams, especially Dallas. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, they're coming at you crazy. They're gonna fly at that guy. And then again, as I mentioned previously when I was previewing that Sunday night game, they have Trevon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore on each side of the ball to cover your 2 best receivers. Garrett Wilson, he can play, but they're gonna be on that guy. They're gonna know for sure that he's the man that they're gonna want to throw to. And Aaron Rodgers, again, going back to that subject, he was the one that they wanted to have the most chemistry with Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson. They wanted that combination to be potent for at least the next couple of seasons. And Aaron Rodgers even went so far as to tell Garrett Wilson when he got injured on Monday night, he said, "Sorry, kid." He even apologized to the kid as if to say, "This is a disappointment, and I wanted to build something with you." And I completely get that. This thing with Aaron Rodgers is really tough. Going back to Aaron Rodgers, as far as him on the singular aspect of Aaron Rodgers, man, tearing that Achilles. Let's provide some context to that. Let's compare a different athlete. I know it's a different sport, but let me give you some context to give you an idea of what he's going to be dealing with here. Current Phoenix Suns forward Kevin Durant. He tore his Achilles tendon in Game 5 of the 2019 NBA Finals when he was with Golden State at the time on June 10th of 2019. Okay, it took him until December 22nd of 2020 to return to the floor and to play basketball. Even with the pandemic that delayed the season from about March 12th, March 13th to later till July when the NBA was trying to figure out the situation with the bubble in Orlando and trying to get the accommodations and things of that nature. Even with all those delays and things that pushed the season further along than it would have normally been, Kevin Durant still was not ready, and he was 33 years old at the time that he did that. 33 years old. Aaron Rodgers, again, I stated this previously, he's going to be 40 in December. 40 years old in December. That 6, 7 year period does matter as far as the healing, because that's the first thing right off the bat. You're going to want to make sure you're fully healed, fully stable, fully ready. So say it does take him 12 months to get back right. Will he be ready for the start of the season? That's the thing. We gotta find out when he's gonna be healed and when he's gonna be ready, because you don't want him rushing out there. Now, I did read something here earlier, that it stated that tearing an Achilles tendon a second time is a 4.7% chance. That's relatively low. That's a lot lower than I thought it would be. And for me, that's it. That's what that tells me. So I'm fine with that. Looking at the thing as a whole, it's not when you're playing the quarterback position, it's not just about healing it. You want to make sure that it's pliable, that you can run around a little bit. I don't want him to be Michael Vick. I don't want him to be Randall Cunningham. I don't want him to be a quarterback that. I don't want him to be Mahomes. But at the same time, you can't just be a statue either. He has to be able to move around a little bit with that Achilles tendon. Is he going to be able to do that? Again, 39 years old, and he'll be turning 40 in December. So, to sum things up here, as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, I genuinely hope that he can come back and can come back healthy. And I also genuinely hope that he's able to be the man that he was prior to all this, be able to MVP. Age is a real thing, man. Father Time is undefeated. So, the best for Aaron Rodgers. I truly hope he does come back and come back strong. But just that context I gave you, that time period for Kevin Durant was rough. Again, I understand that it's a difference. There's a difference between a power forward in the NBA and a quarterback in the NFL. I completely understand that. But at the same time, there's a lot of movement involved with both guys. You can't just be a statue. So we just got to kind of see what happens here. Switching gears here is the first here on the Hype Show. We're going to talk about some Major League Baseball. We haven't touched on any baseball at all on this show, so I'm definitely thrilled and happy to talk about that with you guys here. The first thing we're going to talk about here in regards to baseball, the Atlanta Braves, they clinched their sixth straight NL East title last night, defeating the Philadelphia Phillies 4-1 here. NL Cy Young contender Spencer Strider got his league-leading 17th win over in baseball. That guy's been a beast. He can pitch out of the bullpen and he can be a starter. Austin Riley, the third baseman for the Atlanta Braves, he hit a two-run homer, and that's kind of what sealed the deal for this team and put them ahead for good. The statistic here for Matt Olson, first baseman for the Atlanta Braves here. Matt Olson, he's going nuts right now. That guy is absolutely crazy, and he's definitely up for MVP, plain and simple. He has 51 home runs, 128 RBI, and he's been walked 94 times. Basically, when he's up at the plate, he's going to give you some sort of production. Because looking at the National League leaders in home runs as a whole, Matt Olson leads with 51. Pete Alonso of the New York Mets, he's tied with Shohei Ohtani of the Los Angeles Angels at 44. This is all of Major League Baseball. Kyle Schwarber is next of the Philadelphia Phillies at 43 home runs. And Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers, he brings up the rear at 39 home runs. So this just kind of gives you an idea of how dominant Matt Olson has been at the plate. Looking at his RBIs, he has 128 RBIs. Pete Alonso of the New York Mets has 108 RBIs for second. That's 20 more RBI. Kyle Tucker of the Houston Astros is third with 105 RBI. Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers has 103 RBI. And Adolis Garcia, the outfielder for the Texas Rangers, is at 100 RBI. He recently hit the IL, the injured list here. He's dealing with an ailment, so he hasn't played in a few games. But that guy can play as well here. The Texas Rangers, we'll touch on that a little bit later. They're fading a bit. They're fading a bit here as far as the playoff race here because for a while they were definitely running the AL West. And then it was just a matter of time. But the Texas Rangers, they fell into a spot below because the Houston Astros and the Seattle Mariners, they got it together at the right time. But again, going back to the Atlanta Braves here, they're literally just running away with the National League. For context here, the Los Angeles Dodgers are 88 and 57. 88 and 57 to their 96 and 50. It's just a matter of time looking at the standings before the Dodgers clinch their division. At 88 and 57 here, that would mean that they have 17 games left, and they're up 13 games on the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they're up 13 and a half games on the San Francisco Giants. The thing that jumps out is the Braves are they've been a great team the last 5 seasons. They won a World Series in 2021. 2020. Yeah, 2021, they won the World Series. And I just don't see any holes in this team at all. One thing to also look at, they're 47 and 25 at home and 49 and 25 on the road. So it doesn't matter if they're at their home at the crib at Turner Field. It doesn't matter that your place. They're going to play consistent baseball and they're going to pitch consistently. I just find myself compelled to wonder because the Dodgers, they've kind of been that team in prior years as well, going to the World Series a couple times as well. They only got the one in 2020 over the Tampa Bay Rays, but they were in the World Series previously in 2018 before falling to the Astros. I just wonder, there's been a lot of change as far as the roster and the personnel, but the essence of the team still overall remains the same. Like I said, they're still going to close out the National League West in dominating fashion. They just don't really have these teams. I just don't see them catching up to them at all here. The National League Central is a little bit more muddled. It's a different story with the Milwaukee Brewers. They're at 82 and 64, and they're only 4.5 games up on the Chicago Cubs. The Chicago Cubs are another team that got it together at the right time at 78 and 69. Now, they have lost their last 2 games in a row here, and they're just 5 and 5 over their last 10 games, so that momentum has cooled off a bit. But to go along with that, the Cincinnati Reds, the team behind them at 76 and 72, they've also gone 5 and 5 over their last 10 games. It's really close in the National League Central. The only teams that look to be out of it, unfortunately, are probably the St. Louis Cardinals at 65 and 81. They're last in that division. And the Pittsburgh Pirates, who, interesting enough, they led the National League Central to start the season. They were kind of on a roll. They're 69 and 78. Now they've won three straight and they're 6 and 4, but it just may be too late to catch up to those other teams. As far as the National League as a whole, it's Atlanta's to lose to me. Because again, they've already clinched their division. They're the only team that's clinched their division and a playoff spot in the National League. Nobody else has clinched a playoff spot yet in the National or American League. So them clinching it actually at 146 games is actually the fifth fastest a team has clinched a division or a playoff spot in Major League history. So again, they just ran away with their division. They won four. This is one of those things where October can be a beast, though. That's one thing to keep note on. October can be a beast, and we've seen teams from the wild card get to a World Series. It doesn't happen very often, but it's happened enough for you to be cognizant of it. The Philadelphia Phillies, keep in mind, playing in the 2022 World Series, they did lose to Houston in six, but they were the wild card. They actually beat the Atlanta Braves in the NLDS last year because the Braves were a great team last year too. But Philly, they got momentum at the right time and they got really hot with the bats. So that's what doomed the Atlanta Braves last year because I honestly thought they were going back to the World Series again after winning it in 2021. For Houston, for them, they got back to a World Series after losing it and winning, so that was the redemption they needed. But I feel like Atlanta can be that team this year to get back to a second World Series in 3 years and take it. It's just really a matter of kind of just shaking things down as far as who they're going to play, where they're going to play, things of that nature. So it's just that's just baseball for you. October can be a beast. You'll see a team just be amazing from April to September, and then October just swallows them up within a 4 to 5 game period. Because the thing about playoff series is that they maintain the same consistency as far as when the games are played as they do in the regular season. They play these games back to back to back. It's not like with the NFL where you have a playoff game weekly. I guess you can say that's consistency in schedule as well because of the nature of the game. But like hockey, for example, you may have a game or two back to back, but then you'll have a couple of days off before the next game. With the NBA, they have a game every other day, possibly every other couple days. So, as far as baseball, they're just consistently playing these games if they make the playoffs. Transitioning to the American League here, as far as the standings there, the American League, the team that jumps out as far as having the best record is the Baltimore Orioles at 91 and 54. That's very interesting because they were a last place team last year and they lost over 100 games last year. So for them to make that transformation, that complete 180 is pretty stunning, but it's pretty awesome. They draft really well, and that's part of the reason why they were a bad team over the last few seasons or so. The Baltimore Orioles, to me, they're just young. They're a young, fresh team that knows how to pitch at the right time, and they have young guys on their roster that really know how to swing the bat. The guy that jumps out to me is their catcher, Adley Rootsman. I might be saying that wrong here, but he leads the team with 18 home. I'm sorry, he leads the team with, or he's second on the team. I'm sorry, as far as home runs, but an RBI. Anthony Santander has 27 home runs, 84 RBI, and another young player, Gunnar Henderson, their third baseman, he has 25 home runs and 75 RBI. One thing that I noticed about Rootsman is he's been walked 89 times, which is interesting for a catcher. That's very interesting for a catcher. You usually see that with other position players and outfielders, but the fact that a catcher who has played 139 games, which is very grueling on the knees. I don't know if you've ever played catcher. I hated it. Very grueling on the knees, but for him to have that go along with that power is amazing. He has a slugging percentage of 420 and an on base percentage of 368. So, like I said, even if he's not being walked by the opposing pitcher, he's gonna get to the bases. Again, Anthony Santander, 27 home runs, 84 RBI, leading the team in both categories. It just looks like you have a young nucleus of hitters, and you have guys that really know how to pitch. Because looking at their pitching here, Kyle Gibson, he's got a record of 14-9, 181 hits over the course of the season with 144 strikeouts. That ratio is incredible because 144 strikeouts, that means over the course of these games, you're putting down an average of possibly 7 strikeouts per start. And to go along with that, 175 innings means that you're willing to put in the work over the long haul. So again, I'm looking at this team here, the Baltimore Orioles. They're a young team doing their thing. The Tampa Bay Rays are right behind them at two games behind in the division at 90 and 57. They'll probably be in the playoff mix as well. We still got to figure out who's going to win the division because there's still a lot of games left. And if Baltimore slips at all, Tampa can definitely jump in and take that position. The rest of the division, the Toronto Blue Jays at 80 and 6, the Boston Red Sox at 74 and 72 currently, and the Yankees in last place at 73 and 73. They're not a factor as far as this division goes. So coming down to who's going to win this division, it's definitely Baltimore or Tampa at this current time here. The American League races as a whole are just very tight as far as the teams and where they are right now. So any bit of slippage, and you can go from being a division leader to out. Because when I look at the AL West, conversely, for example, the Houston Astros lead the division at this current time right now at 83 and 64. The Texas Rangers are a game behind at 81 and 64, and the Seattle Mariners are just a game and a half behind at 81 and 65. Again, the Astros and the Mariners, they got things figured out at the right time. The Mariners at the trade line acquired the Arizona Diamondbacks closer Paul Sewald, and that really shored up their bullpen. That really gave them that end of game pitching comfort that they need to truly shut teams down when it's needed. The Texas Rangers have won 5 games in a row. They did lose their pitcher Max Scherzer. He's out for the regular season, and he's unlikely to pitch in the playoffs, according to Bruce Bochy, the manager, and the general manager Chris Young. We'll touch on that in a little bit as far as the details of the injury that he's going through. So that is a bummer for Texas as far as getting into the playoffs and having the pitching you need down the stretch to truly win games. So that we'll just have to see how things go with them. Again, looking at the rest of the division, and fourth, you have the Los Angeles Angels at 68 and 79, and you have the Oakland A's at 46 and 100. Man, 46 and 100. That is rough. Again, Oakland A's are already eliminated, and the Angels are pretty much eliminated. They made a lot of trades at the trade deadline to see if they can entice Shohei Ohtani into staying, and also see if they can have a roster where they could actually get into the playoffs. And things actually got worse for them. I don't see them getting into the playoffs. They're 13 and a half back of Seattle in third place, and there's just not enough games. There's 147 games that they've played, and they literally only have 15 left. So you would literally have to win 15 games to get in out of the 15 you have. Just not going to happen. So we'll have to see how things shake up down the stretch here. I typically am going to be talking about baseball probably every Thursday at this current time, but as the playoffs pick up here, we'll definitely have more definition and more definitive ideas as to who's doing what. But as the baseball season comes to the playoffs here before the season comes to a close, I'll probably be talking baseball every Thursday just because of the fact that we're inundated with so much football and there's just so much to get to. Looking at the American League Central, with the Minnesota Twins, they lead the division at 76 and 70, and they're 7.5 games up on the Cleveland Guardians, who are 69 and 78. Cleveland Guardians are 3 and 7 in their last 10 games. That was a team that I genuinely thought would take the division this year. I genuinely thought that they would go back to the playoffs. They played the Yankees in the ALDS last season, and I genuinely thought that they just would get in just off the merit of having this pretty much the same players. But one thing that definitely affected the Cleveland Guardians was the loss of Shane Bieber. Shane Bieber was an AL Cy Young candidate last year, a contender for the AL Cy Young, and not having him really, really hurt them. That this team was just kind of lost in their bullpen. They made some moves to acquire players, but it just didn't happen for them. They even picked up Lucas Giolito. That was one of the players that the Angels tried to acquire at the trade deadline, and it just didn't work out. So they placed him on waivers.